This part I think was actually beautiful. The part I'm about to read, I like this part. This might be, I think, my favorite part. The author says, "It is hatred of kneeling girls wearing white veils, hatred of ladies with many children wearing black veils, hatred of men kneeling in prayer and recollection, perhaps with the rosary between their hands, hatred of priests in cassocks who are faithful to the doctrine and spirituality of all time, hatred of families that are large and peaceful despite the difficulties of this society, hatred of fidelity, of seriousness, of the thirst for sacred. It is hatred of an entire world, even more numerous, that has not fallen or no longer falls into the humanistic and globalist trap of the, scare quotes, new Pentecost." There is a hatred, and you see it. Pope Francis can't stop talking about cassocks and hats and Saturnos, and he even made that nasty comment about you don't have to breed like rabbits to be faithful. I looked that up. I think it was back in 2015 he said that. In 2015, I was doing the Catholic Answers thing and defending Pope Francis. Well, I would say, well, if you read it in Spanish and you interpret it this word in the Spanish dictionary using the third definition, and you then interpret it in this light, what Pope Francis is saying is not heretical, it's totally orthodox. I was doing that in 13, 14, and 15. When Pope Francis came out in 2015 and said, you don't have to breed like rabbits to be faithful, I was like, no, I'm done with Francis. You don't talk like that about our families. You don't talk that way about my wife. You don't talk that way about my kids. You're supposed to be the Pope and the Vicar of Christ, encouraging us. I was done. And you know what I did? If you anyone who followed me or my blog or anything I was doing, podcast, I kind of went silent on Francis from 15 into 16. And then in 2016, he issued Amoris Laetitia. And after reading that, I was like, I'm going vocal. And I started being vocal against problems in the pontificate of Pope Francis in 2016. And by 2017, I had lost friends, speaking gigs failed, publishing, all kinds of things dried up because they didn't want you to say the emperor has no clothes on in 2017. That was my progression. And people who are trying to follow Jesus as real disciples, loving Jesus, loving our neighbor, loving our spouses, loving our children, our parents, our siblings, trying to live this gospel, which is, he says, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. There is a burden, there is a yoke. It's easy with grace, but it's still a struggle. We don't need this hatred, dismissal. Everything going wrong in the church right now. Sex abuse, sodomy, heresy. We got to stop everything and issue a motu proprio against traditional Catholics who make up, by the way, less than 1%, technically, of Catholics in the world. I'm talking about a 1% group, and we got to start dropping nuclear bombs on those people. So the author at the end says, what will happen in the traditionalist world? How will traditionalists respond? He says, this is where we turn to obedience. He says, it is the key problem of obedience, over which even the world of tradition, a dirty game is often played, often incited not by a sincere search for what is best or for the truth, but personal wars, which have today become more acute in the face of the rift caused by health totalitarianism and vaccination. Obedience, and this is the error that finds its deepest root, even in the preconciliar church, it must be said, is not an end. It is a means of sanctification. Let me pause here. Obedience is a means of sanctification. It is not an absolute value. It is an instrumental value. It is a positive value, very positive. If it's ordered towards God. If one obeys Satan or his servants, or obeys error, or obeys apostasy, obedience is no longer good. You can't say obedience is always the right thing to do. Otherwise, you're obeying Hitler and you're obeying Satan. If the Pope says jump off that cliff and commit suicide, H to the no. Not going to do it. If the Pope says, I want you to go to this Mass, and the Jesuit priest there says, Our Mother who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Take your kids to that? H to the no. I'm not going to go. I'm not taking my precious little kids who I try to catechize and teach the rosary to. I'm not taking them to a Mass that contains heresy. The article then says, exactly like peace, obedience is like peace. Peace, the divinity of today's subversion, is not an end, but rather an instrument of the good and the just, if it's aimed at creating a good and just society. If it is ordered towards creating or favoring a society that is satanic, malignant, erroneous, and subversive, then peace becomes an instrument of hell. And the article ends with these words, let us pray, let us hope, let us keep vigil, and let us choose to be on the right side. The enemy helps us in the choice. In fact, he is always the same everywhere. Things are becoming more clear.